Yes.
Right, thank you all. Welcome to the July meeting of the Brent Knoll Parish Council. Welcome to tonight's meeting. If we start off with apologies for absence.
We've got Amanda and Dave. Dave's working and Amanda's had a slight accident, so
They just, so we just had apologies come through from both of them. So, members happy to accept those apologies?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I think everyone else is present. So, any declarations of interest? I'll kick off with my normal one as the member of the Sunset Council, and I think we've got a hall payment, invoice payment. So,
I'm also parish hall.
okay. Any other declarations?
Shop.
Okay.
Shop.
Okay, I think it's shop. Colin?
Shop.
Okay. That's great. So we move on to item 3, which is approval of the minutes, which were circulated on the 4th of June. Any amendments to those? If not, can I have a proposal that sign them as a true and accurate? Thank you, Jonathan. Seconded AD. All those in favour? Let's do it again. Right, that brings us to item 4 on the agenda, which is to fill the vacancy left by co-option for the vacancy that we have on the parish council. Members will have had circulated the application that we had from Tracy Woods. You all have had a chance to read that. Are there any comments or proposals?
I'd like to propose we ask Tracy to join our parish council.
Okay, is that
Second.
all those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. Tracy, would you like to come up and join us?
Bring a cup of tea.
You can't say no now.
Well, no, Tracy.
shall I give you to sign the declaration of office?
Can you welcome me back, Tracy?
Yeah.
Good to have you back. Right.
Right,
Okay, members, that takes us on to just one thing before we move on. Tracy, are there any declarations that you need to do for the shop shareholders? Thank you. Item 5 is planning matters. We haven't got any that have gone through for this month, so that takes us on to item 6, which is the clerk's report and working group, correspondence matters and
also,
search.
you don't need to do that now, that's a really strong interest.
Yeah.
Right, okay, there's a few items, just really for clarity more than anything else. The external audit, which as you know, completed 24 to 25 accounts. We've had some additional questions to answer because of the loans that we took out of the shop and because of our slightly more complicated set of accounts for this year. They came back with a number of things which I was able to answer, fortunately. Gone back with the answers. They have now been satisfied with those answers. And one thing they asked me was that the AGAR report, which is the bit that you agreed in March, was available on the website, which it is now, and they've confirmed they've checked that and they're happy with it. There was one figure that had to be slightly altered to do with the loan, where we'd misinterpreted what the loan outstanding meant in their terms compared with our terms. When I did it originally, I assumed that the outstanding amount was the amount that we borrowed originally less the payments that we made, but they were not including, they didn't want the interest included. So I was able to alter the document without going through a formality. So that's all now finished, the external audit is all now finished. 25. Website changes, you will notice that David Millen is retiring at the end of this year, and obviously our working group met this evening just to talk about how we're going to move forward on the website for the future. The clerks are going to have another one of their forums coming up in early September. There's a number of issues we want to talk about, and I'll give you more updating on that. The only thing I need to ask whether the council are happy for this room to be used at obviously this council's expense for what is a 2-hour meeting, whatever it is, 14 or whatever.
Is everyone happy with that?
Yep.
Against?
I propose it now.
Okay.
Also, the only other thing to mention is the signage at the railway bridge. This was raised by a local resident about a year ago when we had 2 suicides locally by the railway line. The local resident was intending to follow it through, but because of pressures and so forth, he wasn't able to do so. I've now passed it over to the Samaritans in Western-super-Mare. I spoke with Jo, the director at Samaritans in Western. She's now looking at it with Network Rail. They're coming up with some alternative solutions to signage, which might be better as far as they're concerned. So,
and just to recap, for obviously the new copter people, this is new signage that's going to go up at Network Rail's cost.
yes, Network Rail's cost
Not
on their,
for it,
on their infrastructure.
Yeah.
So we have no control over it at all. So, but I'll update you as and when. And that's it, basically.
Thank you. Working group reports. Is there any update from the footpaths team? Colin?
The paths obviously are generally very dry, obviously, but in terms of state, the path at the rear of the church is in poor state. We normally have that cut back, if you remember, and it could do with cutting back, and particularly the bushes as well now, by the where you go through the first kissing gate. It's not very good, really. The path at the rear of the Baker's Field, which goes on towards the tanks, is overgrown once again. I don't know whether Mr. Allsop could probably flay it back for us at some stage. But again, every year it grows like topsy. Other than that, the paths that I've been walking on have been okay.
Is this because we've asked Bristol Water to do this in the past?
Oh, they no. Sorry to butt in. Where Bristol Water have done it, it's perfect.
Okay. Right.
Perfect.
Right.
Yeah, it's like a motorway again.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's great.
So in fact, it's the bit back from Bristol Water to Whitney
Correct.
Bridge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else on footpaths?
The path
Yeah.
up behind the church. I think we've lost a step or something, but it's
Yeah.
really quite difficult to get up there.
Okay.
You know, it's a big slope and then a step. I don't know, washed away in the winter or
So that's part of what we're currently in discussion about having that regraded as part of the drainage works, which we're waiting to hear back on quotes that are being sorted out by WAG, some of the Farm Wildlife Advisory Group. So they're getting quotes for doing that and the work. Well, they're getting quotes for doing the work in the field to the right of there. In effect, that is the Mills Roberts field. And then we've got quotes from Kenny Gordon for regrading that to try and put a bit of slope on it back into the ditch and to level it up a bit better so it's easier for people to walk. But that's part of the project that we've got some money set aside for trying to do this autumn.
Okay.
Colin?
Bob, I was asked to get two. Well, I did get one quote, but I got a second quote just to cross-check it to replace the handrail and posts up the first part of the Knoll path, and to install a kissing gate lower down here and a new gate in Bakersfield, which I've given to Owen. One's from Steve Pinn and the other one is from Ian Durston. I don't know if you want to look at those and agree them, or I don't know whether we've got the gates yet.
Well, there's about a £400 difference in there, roughly-ish, between the two quotes.
On how much?
So how much are the
That's
quotes?
14 or 1,000, about 1,085, I think it's 1,450.
Yeah, Stephen Pinn's is the most competitive price.
So that's all those works. That's the installation of the two gates.
Installation of the two gates and the provision of roughly 40 hardwood posts and rails going up. One of the problems with it, of course, is that if you put the posts in and it dries out like it is at the moment, they start to waggle anyway.
Yes.
But what we thought was we'd whack another post down by the side of it to give it extra stability so we won't have to keep going back. So I don't know whether you want to
Yeah, so
place an order with Stephen to do this or.
So we're saying, in fact, the quote we got from Steve Pinn is £1,000 for those three things. In terms of the gates, we've actually got those. They're down at the farm, ready to go. So the gates,
Which farm?
Ham.
Ham farm.
Yeah.
That's where they're delivered normally.
Because what Paul's allowed us to do in recent times is we've had problems with gates being dropped off in the past around the village and not knowing where they are.
Yes.
So
Okay.
Somerset have agreed that when we order a gate, they will deliver it to Ham Farm, and he's been willing to hold them for us until we actually get the work done.
Okay, so if the council are happy to accept Stephen's quote, and I have no reason not to suspect that it's a good quote because he's done a lot of work for us, if that be the case, then I can ask him to go to Ham Farm, collect those gates and get them installed.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
I'm
so
happy to get that organised.
our members happy that we go ahead and basically put £1,000 for the fence work and the installation of 2 gates.
So it's 1,085, isn't it?
Okay, so those in favour, please show. Right, that's clearly carried. Thank you.
Do that.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Highways.
Nothing to report. I don't know if you have to.
What's happening with the top of Brent Street and the corners?
So it should have happened, as you know, we
Yes.
had notification the road was going to be closed. It was then postponed because the EA didn't respond to the request for it to be closed. So they
Right.
couldn't go ahead without them having given permission.
Right.
Everybody else had come through. So they've now postponed it. They will be having to work out again another opportunity when the road will be available for closure when there aren't other ones going on around.
Right.
At which point it will then be advertised again and they will chase the EA faster, I think, to try and get them to do it. We did we warned the businesses, obviously it was going to be
Yes,
closed. We then went
yes.
back to the businesses to say we're very sorry, but it's 8.
The contract's open for 12 months to win it, so they've got another 10 months to go, and they decide again. Yeah.
Okay. One bit of information, just to let you know, I've been contacted by a resident about the milestone up at the A38. Back at the turn of millennium, we put a commemorative milestone up there because the original milestones have disappeared. It has a metal plate on the front of it, which has some wording on it, which is in very bad nick at the moment. He would like to donate towards that being refurbished, but he would like to be put in touch with the people who did our road signs, because when it was originally done, the word millennium was spelled incorrectly. Yeah. So he was talking about whether someone could actually correct that. He would be prepared to pay for that, but he wants to get permission if we could contact people to see what could be done and then let him know what the cost would be, so he can definitely confirm that he would do it. There won't be any cost to us, but he just wants to get permission of the council to look into it. So if you're happy with that, as I say, the firm I'm thinking of putting him in touch with is the one that did the finger posts, because they're a proper boundary. But if
Can't
you're,
think what her name was, offhand.
I've got it somewhere on file, but if members are happy that we at least investigate that.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That's fine. Village Green, who was on Green?
Yeah. No, it seems to be fine, from what I've seen. The only slight problem was the big toilets with one of the taps.
Yes.
That I wasn't sure. Somebody said that it was left on. It was a bit difficult turning it off, but somebody has done something. But whether we ought to have them checked.
Following the thing being drawn to their attention, the cleaners had a look at it, and what had happened was where you're supposed to pull the tap forward, someone had hit it incredibly hard on the top and had forced the thing in slightly. He since has sorted that out. It's now operating fine. It's not dripping.
Yeah.
So it was just someone not using it quite as.
But they're nice and clean, the toilets. Simon was there this morning cutting the grass, and there's a lot of grass to cut, but he was doing that. Just the normal thing. The boys playing football and just leaving plastic bottles lying around. Like
Toilet
they do.
seat.
Oh yes, the toilet seat. Which toilet is that?
First, number 1 in the woods. Yeah.
Yeah, the number 1 toilet seat is wonky.
Okay.
It's been done by the cleaner.
Yeah.
It's moved back up.
Yeah.
But it just needs checking that lot. So
Yes,
Okay.
me or Jane on the Monday, we're just walking in.
yeah.
Check over.
Test the toilets, we're going to go test the
Above and beyond the call of duty. Okay. Anybody else got anything on Victoria? The Hill Lane car park, we've had a note come through from the people who went to the bins. It was reported that the top wasn't fitting properly. It looks like they think someone's hit it with a car. But they have now put the top back on. It is operational and they are able to get in there and empty it, but it does look like someone has put a bit of a dent in it. But to date, so far, the opening and closing at night seems to be working okay. The residents who said they would do it have been regularly doing it, so that's been positive. Audit and Science Group,
Okay.
Shop Liaison Group,
Nothing.
Blood Action Group,
David is
it's not here.
area. No, so he's not. So.
I will, if no one's happy, I will ask David to give a report at the September meeting as what's happening, because that will give a couple of months to just get straight with whatever we are putting together on that. Contract Review Group.
Well, I'm the only one here who was on that group actually, because Amanda and David, we drove around the village actually and looked at all the various sites and to see what could be improved upon eventually. We really looked at, I think, each site piece by piece really, and we came up with some slightly different cutting profiles for each location, although it's not vastly different than what it is now. And Bob, in fact, Bob joined us as well for part of it. But yeah, I mean, it was a good first stab at it. Now I'm drawing up a sort of tentative contract for tender. So some of the cutting regimes are slightly different actually. Just trying to think, we reduced some of them from 8 to 6. I think one of the things that we slightly complicated the exercise was by having too many different cutting numbers for different sites. So we are trying to nail those down into a bit more simplistic, because otherwise it gets complicated. It's very difficult to monitor. You know, if you've got 8 on one site, 6 on another, 5 on another, 3 on another, it doesn't work because it confuses Jason, to be honest, and understandably confuses us. So, so what we thought we'd do is have another look at that, and I'll send out to you once I've just managed to get it on paper. I'll send it out to you what we've come up with, because come September we'll be going for the tender, of course. So we'll need to agree in September that we're going for the new contract tender. Apart from that, it was a very useful exercise to find out exactly what was going on where. And I have Jason has actually sent me, which was requested some time ago, a copy of the grid. So you're going to send me one for June, July, or September, and he tells me on the grid exactly what he's cut and when. So in other words, he's done 1 cut, 2 cuts, 3 cuts, 4 cuts, or whatever. Just gives us an idea of what he's doing. So everybody asks a question and say, well, it was cut in June. Okay.
One of the things we want to make sure before we go out to tender, we get a more solid view of exactly what we're currently doing, because we can talk about increasing or decreasing, but if we're not actually doing what we think we're doing. So, as Owen said, I think planning to pull together the draft,
Pull together the whole thing.
just agree that with your working group,
Yeah.
and then that'll come out to us as members before the September meeting for us to look and decide that to go out for tender. Okay, IT working group. Who wants to take that?
Yeah,
Charlie.
so we had our first meeting tonight, very productive. We addressed things like the website, where our current website designer is retiring at the end of the year, so we're going to have a look at different sources for who can maintain that and how it will be hosted. You may have heard in previous meetings we've got to move to a gov.uk domain and email addresses, so that's going to have to change as well. And Owen's core laptop will need replacing. So at the next meeting in September, we're going to provide the quotes which will need members' approval, so Owen can order his new laptop ready for when it expires. So yeah, very productive.
It's fair to say that I've made inquiries as to what the sort of minimum requirement is for a Clark laptop, and it's a fairly modest specification. It's not very high. It just does the job, does it?
He didn't want to accept pen and paper.
Okay. There's no policy introduction. I just wondered, do we want to just close the windows at the end just to?
I would say,
I think they're about to start cooking.
if they are going.
Will you mention that?
Yeah. Okay. Report from the Somerset Council, just a couple of items from Somerset. Transformation programme is now being looked at for the remainder of the staff that are left at Somerset after the £34 million worth of redundancies that went through for last year. It still leaves us currently with a £100 million hole at the end of the next year budget. So there is still savings required. There is, as I mentioned at the last meeting, a new Chief Finance Officer coming in. He starts this week. So that will give us another view as to how things could be looked at. There's a proposal to work with potentially consultants to relook at also the structure of payments that members of the officers receive, which is going to be out for tender with a potential budget of up to £3 million. I think I mentioned at the last meeting that the concern is the Birmingham issue of if you don't get your gradings right, you can end up with a very large bill at the end of it. We are raising those whether £3 million is a reasonable budget for that, or whether that has been raised as well, that's slightly on the high side in terms of what's required. In terms of you may have seen there's ongoing discussions about street parking, car parks and Sunday parking. That's going to be out for out for consultation. It was supposed to be coming in this autumn. It's been deferred. Consultation hasn't happened as yet. The likelihood is the first elements that might come forward are the charging for Sundays and the potentially charging for free car parks, because those generally need less legislation than charging for on-street and are less costly. But there should be consultation on all of them before it happens. As yet, that is not decided, but it is built in within the budget. So we will be seeing how that moves forward this autumn. Boundary reviews, we have, I think, I can't remember, it was out the last time. It was. What we should be doing as a parish is if we have a view as to whether the boundary reviews for Somerset are something we support or not, then it is up to us to make our views known to the Commission. So far, the general response has been pretty positive to the suggestions. They are better than were feared in terms of often it's a numbers game and not much notice is taken of communities. They do seem to have listened in the first consultation that was out and have put in quite a few of the suggestions that people had made. Our own neck of the woods has remained with what will be 7 parish councils within the new Brent division. Berwick and Breen go into Burnham and Compton Bishop goes in with Axbridge. But apart from that, there's not much change around this area. Burnham without actually gets chopped into 4 pieces and put in 4 different seats. Edithmead coming in with us, Watchfield going in with Mark, and the bits of what were the radio station and the Tesco's estate going in with 2 different areas of Burnham. So that will be interesting.
What does that mean to the councillors that sit on Burnham without?
So initially it doesn't change because they will still be a Burnham without council. What is likely, though, I think, is before too long there'll be a community governance review, which basically is when you can then look at the boundaries of parish councils. There's a number of areas around the patch where there have been big urban extensions on Bridgewater, Burnham, Yeovil, all the other big areas, and they've often gone into what were rural parishes. So Burnham without, you've got that whole area of Tesco's is in the Burnham without parish, but actually feels much more like Burnham than it does Burnham without. So the likelihood is at that stage they will look at redrawing those boundaries and seeing those towns' boundaries move and take areas in. Possibly the way that they have done this breaking up of Burnham Without, it could well be that they will break Burnham Without into different parishes. So in effect, a lump of it will go in with Burnham. It might be proposed that Edithmead may be added on to Brent Knoll, and it could be that Watchfield will be added on to Mark.
Does that change the numbers that sit at the parish council?
Yeah. So there would be a part of the community governance review is to see the numbers that would be appropriate. My guess would be if they did that, I think if there were a new Brent Knoll Parish Council, I think it would still have 11 members, because 11 tends to be the bigger number that you tend to get with a parish. We're one of the larger parishes. What would be in all likelihood is they would have a councillor in the ward of Edithmead, and the other 10 councillors would be elected for the rest of the parish. So we would potentially see one fewer councillor for our neck of the woods. This is probably a couple of years down the line,
Okay.
but it's likely. I think it is highly likely to happen, not because they're worried about the Brent Knolls of this world, but they're worried about the Burnhams and the Bridgewaters. And so we are the knock-on effect. The concern, I must admit, I had before this Somerset review was that they might just take the whole lump of Burnham Without and stick it in Burnham, which would then move the boundary for Burnham up to the back end of the houses on Brent Street, which might not necessarily be in our best interest. So it's something we need to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
If that consultation does come out, we need to be in there, and because I think Burnham will be quite happy to take the whole lot in, because it gives them another area they can potentially look for expansion. We may not have the same views.
Maybe not.
Okay. Other than that, I think that's probably it from Somerset. I don't know. Colin and myself both attended the most recent LCN meetings, which was the annual one. So they are renewing their running for this year. I think is it 4 meetings they've planned, Colin, for the rest of the year. Again, highlighting the issues of highways is something they want to focus on, so there will continue to be a highways working group. They also potentially want to look at, I think it was youth as one area.
Yeah.
So I think the LCNs, to be honest, are still trying to find their feet. I think that they're not meeting, I think, what they were originally expected to do, partly because they have no budget. So really at the moment they tend to be a bit of a talking shop. But there is a hope that as time goes on, there may be they're trying to learn best practice from each other, because there's 18 of these across the whole of Somerset. Some, to be frank, are more active than others, but it's something that it's an ability for parishes to meet and raise issues that affect common areas. But I don't know, Conor, whether you want to add anything from your point of view.
No, I'm glad you said it, because I remember I said it last time. But, it's a networking opportunity, and I think we all are facing the same sort of problems, but we tend to address them amongst ourselves. But it's nice to take our resolution into a bigger pool and see how it measures. So, but I've got the annual report if anyone wants to have a look at it. And it's quite interesting, but as I say, I think Bob summed it up. It's got to find its way in some way, but we'll persevere with it.
Okay, thank you. Finance report.
Finance, nothing too dramatic this time around. Statutory payments for July 25 are those that we approved on March 6th, 2025. So it's a question of you approving that they should be paid. They're all paid by direct debits, any or standing orders anyway. So I just okay. Thank you. Thank you. That's okay. That one. Now the variable payments for July, there were 4 payments. The quarterly office expenses and allowance April to June 322.07. That's down a bit on the last year. I have got, if anybody wants to see any evidence of that, it's always available to you. I've got a copy of it, and it details exactly what that 322 amounts from. So in other words, it covers things like mileage, printing, postage, that sort of thing. Refreshment expenses for the annual meeting. In fact, Charlie, you should have declared an interest on that one, of course. I only just remembered this month, we hadn't paid it for you actually, but so
I
we
clearly
won't get a vote on
noticed.
that one. Okay. Parish Hall room hire for the period 4th of March to the 21st of May, £152.25, and pay to payroll services for the year 25-26. So I guess those on the hall should not vote necessarily on the third one. Charlie, you won't. So let's do it one by one. So if we do the first one first, the allowances and expenses office, is that acceptable to everybody? Okay, so that's okay. So those that are not involved, are you happy with the payment to Charlie?
No, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Maybe
And
discount.
the hall, the same way, no Bob, no Charlie on that one, so we've got 6 to consider it. Majority of 6, okay. Thank you. And then pay to payroll services, which again is a standard. We use pay, so they turned out to be really good actually. Session used to do it, of course, at one time. But these people are doing it at the same cost that Session used to charge, and do a really good job. They all send all the right documentation.
Question, what is pay to payroll services?
Well, basically, they do all my pays, clerk salary, national insurance,
Right,
all that
okay.
sort of stuff.
So it's
Which
PAYE for you.
PAYE.
Right, yeah.
Now, I used to do it myself at one
Yeah.
time, and some clerks still do, but some clerks are also getting it wrong.
Mm.
And then, I don't want to take responsibility for, particularly when it comes to HMRC.
Yeah.
I'd rather somebody who doesn't regularly do it, for the sake of 140 quid a year, it's well worth doing. So, yeah, that's what it is basically.
All those in favour, we do that one. Okay.
Other financial matters, I said to you the monthly budget reserves sheet, I'm sure you've all read and diligently absorbed. Not much on it still, we're only 3 months into the year, not a lot to say on there this year, it's just really basically we're about 13,000 spent so far for a £65,000 budget. So we're on track for the year. Come September we'll have a bit more meat on the bones because it'll be a couple more months and we should start to be able to forecast what we're doing to the end of the year a bit more accurately. So that's, as I say, that's pre-circulated each month. And then the other thing we need is authority for the club and chairman to make payments during August, so we don't have meetings. Anything that comes up, which we can get in retrospective regarding come September if there's anything controversial.
We
I propose
expect-
that we, oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Are we expecting anything in
No.
August? Right, okay.
No.
So,
I propose that we give clerk and chairman approval, authority to make August payments due to no formal meetings for that division.
And just to confirm, as Owen said, those will come forward to the
Next meeting.
meeting after, so they won't just happen and disappear, you will see them.
You will see
But it's
what
just
they're-
retrospectively, so.
that £1 million payment to the chairman and the clerk.
Exactly.
Right.
Slush fund.
Okay, so matters of consideration. First one was the rambles on Ham Road.
Which actually you raised last time, didn't you?
Yeah, I just wonder why the council done it, but I found out it wasn't the council, it is the Network Rail that done the roundels on that bridge. Because
Right.
by law they're supposed to have them on the bridge
Right.
because of the way the bridge is. But it's got to have a weight limit put on there. It's got to have a weight limit put down there, Burton Road, Brent Street. We're getting 44-ton trucks coming over that bridge now, and it's only a 40-ton weight limit. Even though they're empty, they're still not allowed by law.
Okay.
So it needs to get onto the Network Rail and say, look, you've got to put some 40-ton weight limit signs up now, because people are diverting round.
Yeah.
If there's an accident down here or something, they come through the village, and if that bridge goes, you know, it needs looking at that.
Okay.
But I know what the roundels are now.
Okay.
Well, then speak to them with Raleigh on that. So I know what their view of that is.
Also on the rounders, I have raised it with highways in terms of there are quite a few others through the village that are wearing quite badly, so they have now put it on their list, and I have flagged up Ham Road, because obviously they weren't there before, because you used to have the rumble strips near where
Yeah.
your place is, because that's where the 30 used to start. They've now moved the 30 more towards Barrow, but they haven't put anything in as a reminder at that point. So we're going to see if highway can put a roundel in that sort of general area. That's the painting of the 30 mile an hour on the road.
Oh, right.
Hence the word round.
Yeah.
I never said of his training, he said it.
Okay.
It's a roundabout.
ANPR data.
ANPR, nothing more so. I've been uploading quite a bit of data over the last month for ANPR. Quite interesting data there. Some of it's quite interesting actually. I'm waiting for the police now to decide whether they're going to continue it or not. They haven't decided that yet. So I'll get a few more months. By September we should know. But yes, the data's quite interesting.
When you say interesting, are you saying that it implicates any of us?
Oh, you.
I know he doesn't know the number.
I don't know the number of those. I wouldn't know. But there's a lot of repeat offenders, let's put it that way.
Certain times of the day, daytime.
No, there's no consistency at all, it's all over the place. But there are some funny things happening whereby there's a timescale on a couple of them where you're getting the same car for the same time 3 or 4 times on there. I'm not quite sure how that works. So I need to check that out with the police.
They go back and forth.
8.
Yeah, obviously we had the emails to say that everyone was vandalising that bar.
Yes.
There is a new camera now up online that is actually focused straight onto the post. So when he does put it up on there, that can pick up anything, registration, even a stone in a toilet will pick up. So it's a new camera put up and it's solar panelled, and I can watch it all around the world, sort of thing, wherever I am. So if anything is damaged on there, I can record it back, and we know exactly who and when. So it's on there. All right.
That's one of the things I say about basically numbers. I've uploaded about 300 over the last 7 or 8 weeks. 300.
Over what speed?
Over the
Our
threshold.
threshold.
Our threshold.
Yes.
Not entirely to do with driving, but there was an incident on the village green because 2 very burly policemen came in
Oh, that was exciting.
and they wanted to know if we had CCTV on the village green, which we don't, and it was a drunk driver who was arrested and
Suspended.
doing things in the village green that she shouldn't do in front of children. Anyway, but yes, so there was a drunk driver.
Okay. Any
Probably came to
Okay. Flood rate rises in terms of the area behind the footpath. I mentioned slightly earlier that there's no further update on that. We're still waiting. I've got to chase up the grants on that front. Neighbourhood watch.
That was Amanda's item, which is not here, so I'll defer that
Okay.
to.
And the post office, Royal Mail.
Nothing's really ever happened in the post office, I'm afraid. It's not going to happen. Anything.
So the current state of play is, as you know, we did contact the local MP. She did write to Royal Mail and she got as much sense out of them as we did. So no further forward on that front. I have actually raised it publicly through contacting their Twitter line, which they then said, would you mind doing this in private? So I then had a further conversation with them and they've just sent me back to the same guy that we dealt with before. So, but he has sent me an email. So
Wow.
absolutely. So progress. But I think we're at that stage where we're going to go public with it and make sure that people are aware of why we're not going to get a post box. It's because Royal Mail are basically being completely entrenched.
A post box.
Yeah.
To move it. Even a post box. We're not going to get a post box. No.
They said it's too close to the other one.
They, having told us we could have it, they then said it was going to potentially obstruct the lights of the children's crossing, which is outside the front, you know, the flashing lights that come on at those times, which I don't think it would have anyway, but at that point they then said, oh, and by the way, you don't need it anyway because you've got the 2 either side. We then, after the last meeting, or after one meeting, had approached them and said, well, okay, we could potentially move one of those to be more central. That they haven't really even engaged with, have they? So I think we're going to point out again the issues of the safety with the Fox and Goose post box, which is the one they're saying is close enough for people to use up that end of the road. So it's just
want to know how they expect people to cross the road.
I don't think they even care.
No, I'm sure they don't.
They've drawn their map and they've done their
So-
half a mile
Yeah.
from the box, and as long as those circles meet, they don't take into account anything to do with the actual real world tracing.
That's what we tried.
That's what we offered.
No.
We can't relocate the one obviously Fox and Goose because it's physically built in, but we did suggest moving the one from the telephone exchange. And as I say, we got a reply from the gentleman, which was basically another cut and paste letter, responding to all the points in our previous letter and not even responding to the moving.
Because we've even suggested at our own cost, but we're not allowed to because they need to organise it. So we're literally going, you know what, just give us a yes and we'll arrange for it and pay the bill. And they're still bloody
I
mind.
did suggest a pretty good will was due for the post office after all their registered afterwards. But that didn't seem to carry any weight either, so.
Charlie?
It's not ready to do the post office except the fact it's outside the shop, so let me raise under matters.
Okay.
Under
That's the report, yeah. In which case we move on to my report and we'll start with Tracy. Jane?
The hedge, Burton Road, the row of cottages, and there's 3 cottages,
Yes.
and the hedge that is overgrown on the pavement, and if they park their cars, you can't get past, and that will, it's still a big hedge.
So that's Bellevue, it's basically Bellevue
That's it,
Villas.
yes, thank you, yeah.
Could you let us know outside the meeting which number when you pass it next? Or if
Yes.
it's more than one, then we can
Yeah,
initially. What we've tended to try and do in the past is we've tried to do a friendly reminder to
Yes.
somebody that,
Yeah.
would you mind dealing with it? Ultimately, if that fails, we'll have to pass it on to highways and let them
yeah.
Send one of my family letters in.
Level 3, 8.
To 2. Parking on pavements. It is against the law, been updated. You know, do we do something or what? Because someday, you know, if you're walking on the pavement and you scratch their car, they can't claim a penny, but you can claim because they're on that pavement. There's quite a lot of it along Station Road. There's been a couple just on Burton Road, right on the corner. And it's not going to cause an accident, car accident, but it's going to cause problems if someone's walking wheels, you know, well, not so much push chair, but a walking stick, if
Yeah.
they got to walk round.
I'm not sure we
If
have.
they trip, go into the road, someone comes along, they bang.
I don't think we have authority to.
No, they don't have highways and police, but if we can put it
I'll put it on the
on the
agenda.
agenda, because obviously it's not
Okay.
going
For
to
discussion.
And the last one is obviously the boxes. I do the boxes at Burton Row and I do at Ham Road. If everyone agrees, I want to put 2 new boxes up there. Not great big ones like they are, because they look unsightly, but some nice taller ones, painted white, nice, you know, because Westcliff are going to supply flowers for us. But you know, there's a signpost saying Brent Knoll. I look after them too,
Oh,
and then he
flower.
looks after this one, yeah.
Right, okay. Sorry.
So if I can get authority, the bloke over at Woodmill or Woodpile, he said he'd give me them a lot cheaper because it's for obviously for us. But I was going to build some new ones, paint them all nice and white, so they look very nice. People coming in outside, you know, Brent Knoll. If I get authority, I think it's only going to cost probably about 50, 60 quid for the wood for both sets. But it's up to the committee.
And let us know the cost.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. So we'll put that on the agenda for the next one, because the problem is items raised in the letter for report we can't take action on. But
Yeah. I won't be building them yet anyway.
what I would suggest to members is if you've got something like that we could decide this meeting, when you get the draft agenda,
Tell me.
let Owen know because he can then put it straight on the agenda and then we can discuss it at this meeting.
Yeah, I did send an email before I even came a member again.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Andy.
Enhanced highways maintenance pilot update. I've read it 2-3 times, not actually sure what we're being asked or what we're being advised on.
So, in effect, what they're saying is that if we want to take on doing works, improving things like doing the hedge cutting back and that sort of stuff, in the past we would have had to have had Chapter 8 training for working on the highway to be covered. What highways are now saying is they will do a sort of trimmed down version of that, which will then authorise volunteers to be able to do those sort of jobs on the highway edge. It doesn't stretch to using mechanical tools, but it does to other cutters and stuff. So that's what in effect they were offering us, the ability to have that training to allow us to do that should we wish to.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Just for the next agenda, we spoke at the last meeting about the like drop box outside the community shop.
Yes.
Just if we can have an update in September what we're planning to do.
I think the thing following that meeting, I sent a note back to the shop saying, please investigate it, because in principle we're okay. To some extent it sits with the shop for them to come back to us with.
Yeah.
So if that can be fed back to the shop, that if we can look, if they come back to us, we can make sure it's on the agenda for September.
I'll send out something.
Oh.
Yes, there's a defibrillator at the school.
Yes.
I've noticed that the light is flashing on it all night.
Right.
I don't know whether that means there's a fault or whether it's just to make people aware.
It's flashing.
I will raise it with Jane,
Just to
because it's
indicate
the guys
it's there.
who had it installed, so I think it might be a sort of fault. I think it's supposed to be on,
What
but
colour light is it? Red or green?
it's a white
No, it's
light.
just a
Yeah,
white.
it means it's working. It's on. It's clear. It's okay.
But other defibrillators don't have
It
flashing
depends which
lights.
ones they are. You've got about 10, 15 different types of defibrillators.
I would.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
Just to make sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, I've not got anything.
Monday.
In which case that takes us to date the next meeting, which will be hopefully the 3rd of September. If we get any planning stuff or urgent stuff that comes through, we have got the normal provisional dates through August, which is August 6th and August 20th. But with any luck, if we don't have anything crop up, then it'll be through the 3rd of September. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.